The anatomy and physiology of brain. The nervous system is divided into the central nervous system, CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, PNS. The CNS includes the brain and spinal cord, while the PNS consists of nerves outside the brain and spinal cord. Brain is one of the largest organs in the body and coordinates most body activities. It is the center for all thought, memory, judgment, and emotion. Each part of the brain is responsible for controlling different body functions such as temperature regulation and breathing. The brain is contained in skull and weighs 1,300 to 1,400 grams, made up of about 1,000 billion neurons. 7 Each neuron is surrounded by about 10 glial cells, neuroglia. Neurons cannot multiply and many neurons are lost every day in life, but glial cells can multiply throughout the life. Brain is also covered by meninges like spinal cord, outer dura mater, middle arachnoid mater, and inner pia mater. Ventricles of the brain. There are certain cavities in the brain called as ventricles. These ventricles are filled with CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. There are 4 ventricles of brain. 2 lateral ventricles in 2 hemispheres of the brain. 3rd lies between hypothalamus and thalamus. 4th between brain stem and cerebellum and is continuous with the central cavity of spinal cord. Parts of brain. First, cerebrum. Includes right cerebral hemisphere and left cerebral hemisphere. Second, cerebellum. Third, brainstem. Includes medulla pons and midbrain. Fourth, diencephalon. Includes thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, and pineal gland. Cerebrum is the largest section of the brain. It is located in the upper portion of the brain and is the area that processes thoughts, judgment, memory, problem solving, and language, imaginations. The superficial layer of the cerebrum is gray matter, and this is 2 to 4 millimeters thick, called cerebral cortex, contains billions neurons. During embryonic development, when the brain size increases rapidly, the gray matter of the cortex enlarges much faster than deeper white matter, so as result cortical region rolls and fold upon itself. The folds are called gyri or convolutions. The deepest grooves between the folds are called fissures. The shallower grooves between folds are called sulci. The most prominent fissure, the longitudinal fissure, separates the cerebrum into right and left halves called cerebral hemispheres. Each hemisphere has 4 lobes. The cerebrum is subdivided into the left and right. Both hemispheres are connected by a bridge of nerve fibers that relay information between 2 hemispheres called corpus callosum. Left hemisphere controls right side of the body. Right hemisphere controls left side of the body. 4 lobes of cerebrum. 1. Frontal lobe. Most anterior portion of the cerebrum, under forehead, central sulcus, separate frontal and parietal lobe. It controls motor function, personality, and speech. Like center of reasoning, planning. Some parts of speech, movement, emotions, problem solving. It is also called as motor cortex. 2. Parietal lobe. The most superior portion of the cerebrum, top of head, receives and interprets nerve impulses from sensory receptors and interprets language. Receives sensory input from the skin, touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. Also called as sensory cortex. 3. Occipital lobe. The most posterior portion of the cerebrum, back of the head. Receives input from the eyes and controls vision. Also called as visual cortex. 4. Temporal lobe. The left and right lateral portion of the cerebrum, on the sides of your head above your ears. Controls hearing and smell. Also called auditory cortex. Functions of cerebrum. Motor functions like control of voluntary movements. Sensory functions like perception of pain, temperature, touch, hearing, taste, and smell. Control of intelligence, speech, memory, learning, etc. Cerebellum is the second largest portion of the brain, located beneath the posterior part of the cerebrum. A deep groove known as transverse fissure separates cerebrum to cerebellum. Aids in coordinating voluntary body movements and maintaining balance and equilibrium. External structure. The external surface, called cerebellar cortex, look like butterfly, constricted area called vermis. The lateral wings or lobes called cerebellar hemisphere that is interconnected by a narrow portion called vermis. Each hemisphere consists of lobes separated by deep fissures. A part of the human brain that lies in the posterior cranial fossa, inferior to occipital lobes. Divisions and layers of cerebellum. Anterior lobe and posterior lobe. Both regulate subconscious aspects of skeletal muscle movements. Flocculonodular lobe. On the inferior surface maintain equilibrium and balance. Superficial layer of cerebellum called cerebellar cortex consist of gray matter, series of slender and parallel folds called folia. Deep to gray matter white matter called arbor vitae resemble to branch of tree. Even deeper white matter are cerebellar nuclei. Region of the gray matter having axons carrying impulses from cerebellum to other parts of brain. Cerebellar peduncles. 3 paired attach the cerebellum to brainstem. These bundles of white matter consist of axons that conduct impulses between the cerebellum and other parts of the brain. Superior cerebellar peduncle is a paired structure that connects the cerebellum to the midbrain. Inferior cerebellar peduncle is a thick rope-like strand that occupies the upper part of the posterior district of the medulla oblongata. Middle cerebellar peduncles connect the cerebellum to the pons. Functions of cerebellum. Coordinate contractions of skeletal muscles. Regulate posture and balance. May play a role in cognition or learning from experiences and language processing. Brainstem consists of midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata. Midbrain. The midbrain or mesencephalon extends from the pons to the diencephalon and about 2.5 centimeters long. It acts as a pathway for impulses to be conducted between the brain and the spinal cord. Associated with vision, hearing, motor control, sleep and wake, arousal, alertness, and temperature regulation. Screening of information before it reach high brain structure. Parts of midbrain. Anterior part called cerebral peduncles and posterior part called tectum. Functions of midbrain. The midbrain serves important functions in motor movement, particularly movements of the eye, and in auditory and visual processing. Dopamine produced in the substantia nigra and ventral tegmental area plays a role in excitation, motivation. The midbrain helps to relay information for vision and hearing. Pons. Pons means bridge, connects the cerebellum to the rest of the brain. Lies between midbrain above and medulla below in front of cerebellum. Like medulla, it is also sensory tract and motor tract. Contains nuclei that deals with respiration, swallowing, bladder control, hearing, equilibrium, eyeball movements, facial expressions, etc. Medulla oblongata, lowermost part of the brainstem and continuation of the superior portion of spinal cord. Situated at the base of the skull, starts from foramen magnum and extends to the inferior border of the pons, a distance of about 3 centimeters. The ascending and descending sensory and motor white motor tracts, nerves connecting brain to spinal cord, pass through medulla oblongata. It's very important because many regulatory centers are located here. The cardiovascular center regulate the heart rate, force of heartbeat and diameter of blood vessels. The medullary rhythmicity center responsible for maintaining basic rhythm of breathing. The vasomotor center regulate blood pressure. Others, vomiting, swallowing, cough, hiccuping and sneezing, etc. Pairs of cranial nerves originates from the nuclei located in medulla oblongata. What is diencephalon? Posterior part of the forebrain that connects the midbrain with the cerebral hemispheres. Encloses the third ventricle. Thalamus. Contain mass of nerve cells. Thalamus means inner room in Greek, as it sits deep in the brain at the top of the brainstem. The thalamus is called the gateway to the cerebral cortex, as nearly all sensory inputs pass through it to the higher levels of the brain. It makes up 80% of diencephalon. Important relay station for all incoming sensory nerves from periphery, spinal cord with different impulses of pain, temperature, touch, pressure are conveyed to thalamus first, then go to cerebrum. This information is relayed from thalamus to cerebrum through thalamic nuclei. Median geniculate nucleus. Related to hearing. Lateral geniculate nucleus. Related to vision. Ventral posterior nucleus. Related to taste and somatic sensations like touch, pain, pressure, cold, heat, vibrations, etc. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sits under the thalamus at the top of the brainstem. Although the hypothalamus is small, it controls many critical bodily functions. Controls autonomic nervous system. Center for emotional response and behavior. Regulates body temperature. Regulates appetite. Regulates water balance and thirst. Controls sleep-wake cycles. Controls endocrine system. Controls CVS regulation. Heart rate and BP. Epithalamus and pineal gland. Epithalamus is a small region superior and posterior to the thalamus. It consists of pineal gland. Pineal gland is about the size of the pea and protrudes from posterior midline of the third ventricle. Its endocrine gland secretes hormone, melatonin. Darkness stimulates the pineal gland to secretes melatonin. It promotes sleepiness. The cranial nerves. The 12 pairs of cranial nerves named because they pass through bones of cranium and arise from the brain inside the cranial cavity. These nerves may be sensory, carrying impulse to the brain, motor, carrying impulse from the brain to periphery, or mixed. containing both sensory and motor fibers. Thank you.